Hello, I'm Magda from I'm a Little Creature. Today I'd like to present you two cardigans I've made them a year ago, so now it's time to show you because I want to put it off and make another projects. So the first one, it's a beautiful cable cardigan by Bummbul. I've bought the pattern on Etsy, a Cocoon Shrug cardigan. This is the first page of the pattern, and it was my second sweater I've made, because the first one, it was a Wisteria Lane, a pattern by Lagos. My passion free pattern is on YouTube. You may find if you want to. And this is the second sweater, it's a cardigan with this cable patterns. It's quite easy. You need to know how to make neat pearls and these cables details described in the pattern. Firstly, you make the body. This is a rectangle shape, and then from this rectangles you made sleeves with this is ribbing for the sleeves, and then you join these sleeves and the sides of the sweater. What else? For this project I used the Drop Earth mix yarn. Here is the label, Drops Air, color 10 Fog. You may read the specification. We have a 75% alpaca, 28% polyamide and 7% of wool. What's great about this yarn, it's made with the modern way. Instead of spinning, its fibers are blown, and that's why it's so light, and the finished cardigan is also really light. It's not so heavy. It's like a fog. You may wear this cardigan in autumn. I like it very, very much, although I'm not quite satisfied with this final neckline ribbing. It wraps up, you see. We may knit without that. It's your decision, but all in all, I love this cardigan very much. It's really soft, so I recommend you to try. A link to the pattern is in video description. It's not free pattern. I purchased the pattern, and the designer uses yarn Italo alpaca, 11 balls, and 5mm knitting needles. My yarn Drops Air mix is 150 meters per 50 grams, so I counted that. The designer used 825 meters, so I divided this 825 meters by 150 meters that I have in my one skein of Drops Air. So I've got 5.5 skeins, so I've bought 6 skeins of Drops Air mix to make a small medium size. I prefer and I recommend you to buy one more skein, because there may be a situation that you will run out of skein, so it's better to have one additional ball. I think it's everything I wanted to tell you about this sweater. Let's look at the cable here in the pattern. You have beautiful cable, and you have also a kind of joining here. When you made this rectangle, you join the ribbing for the sleeves, and then you need to seam sleeves and sides. You have knit pearls, stockinette stitch, and cables. As for the second sweater I've made, I've bought yarns in 2019. I've made this sweater 1 year ago, so it's been a long time since I finished that. And my pattern is for front and back. It's a garter stitch for this, and I only used a crochet pattern by Kandiana for this sleeves, because the original sweater is a crochet. I wanted knitted sweater, knitted cardigan, so I've made a knitted, I joined these sides with this sleeves. If you don't want to make this kind of sleeves, you may use just plain or the same stitch, or as you wish, bubbles or something what you find in the internet, YouTube. For this cardigan I used the yarn Gazelle Rock and Roll. Here is the specification. It's a silver purple color. My color 13254 here, and we have acrylic polyamide Lana Merino, really soft, but it's quite heavy because for the sleeves I used 3 skeins of gazelle, and we have 115 meters per 50 grams. So I used 11. Firstly, I bought 11 skeins for this sweater, but I ran out of the yarn to make this ribbing, so then I bought 1 more skein. So I recommend you to buy 12 skeins of this yarn for the size small. I crochet this fix with a 5mm crochet hook and made the sweater with 5mm knitting needles, but only for this ribbing, and here for this ribbing bottom I used 4.5mm knitting needles. Here is the original cardigan with a figs, 4 figs, and crochet front and the back. I used only crochet sleeve figs, but not 4. I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full figs. And what is important, after this introduction, I explain you everything in details, how I've made these knitted parts, this cardigan, but then you will see that I've made additional part of the sleeve knitted part, but then I realized that it's too long, the sleeve is too long, so I unravel this part in the video you're going to watch. So pay no attention to this additional knitted sleeve that goes from this front and the back joined together. Or if you are a tall person, you have long arms, you may need to add something, but I prefer to add more figs or longer sleeve of the sweater than this knitted part I originally made previously. So we have two parts of the front, one part of the back, and two crochet sleeves. So now you'll watch the detailed video, and I will explain you how many stitches I casted on, and so on. So have a nice watching. Recently I found in the internet a pattern for Cardigan Figs, a crochet pattern by Kandiana. I like this pattern very much, and I decided to use only the pattern for the sleeves and make my knit sweater, and I'll show you in a moment. I'll tell you about how I did it. Links to the pattern by Kandiana crochet pattern is in video description. I'll just show you. Here's the first page of this pattern. For my project, you see the Kandiana used hook 5mm, 11 balls. I used the yarn Gazelle Rock and Roll, 12 skeins. Firstly I bought 11 skeins, but I ran out of the yarn and I need to add one more, so 12 skeins it's enough. Acrylic polyamide Lana Merino, real nice shimmer, a color. What color I used? 13254. It's shades of dark purple and silver. And here is my knitted sweater. You see, one sleeve is ready, and I sew it to the sleeve I knitted. It's not finished yet. You see lots of yarns I need to weave in. This sleeve is not sewed to the part. Firstly, I started from crocheting the sleeves. I used crochet hook 5mm. After I made it, I left yarn here. I didn't cut it because I needed to think if the sleeve is long enough. So I crocheted following the pattern, and then I left some yarn. That's a skein because for sleeves I used 3 skeins of gazelle cotton, and I decided that the sleeves are too loose, and I added knitted parts here. What's my idea? Because I make this knitted part in the body, I wanted to make it also in the sleeves, and I have 36 stitches here. I counted the stitches, and then I used 4 double pointed needles and divided the stitches through 3 needles, 12, 12, 12, and 1 knitted needle for working. This is the pattern 2 knit and 2 purl. I worked through 8 rows, and then I cast it off in the 9th row, right to right, so knit to knit and purl to purl. I used double pointed needles, 4.5mm. I like this crochet pattern real much. The sweater is quite heavy with this pattern, but I used 3 skeins of yarn gazelle cotton for the sleeve, so it's like this, 3 and 3 for the next sleeve, so I have 6 skeins for the sleeves. Then I worked the back and the front. The back and the front is worked with a garter stitch, 5mm knitting needle for the body and front, but for this part I used the 4.5mm knitting needle, circular needles. I worked with circular needles. So now I'll tell you about the back of the sweater. It's easy to do. I used 3 skeins for the back. For the back I used 5mm knitting needles circular for the body, but for this ribbing I used 4.5mm knitting needles. And firstly I casted on 78 stitches. You see, 2 knit and 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl, finally 2 knit. My ribbing includes 8 rows, and in this part you see 71 rows, but 71 this bumps, because in the garter stitch I worked garter stitch. You see this, you see, look at this up and this bottom bumps. So 71 rows regarding including these 2 bumps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. And I cast it off on the right side in the 72 rows with this bump. So probably I didn't count it such precisely, because I counted only these bumps, and I have 72 bumps and I cast it off. 72 times 2, so probably this back includes 144 rows. If you want to count it, do it. And in the photo I showed you these markers, and it means that I started working with the next skein of yarn. So for my 1 skein I worked for example 8 rows of this ribbing and 44 rows garter stitch, including these 2 bumps. And then I need to add the second skein from this row 45. You see the blue markers in my photo. It means the changing of these skeins. Then I worked the front part. This ribbing is in the end, making through this whole front and back. The front part, the rectangular shape, and the same, the ribbing through 8 rows, knitting needles 4.5mm for ribbing and 5mm for the front of the garter stitch. I casted on 26 stitches, 2 knit, 2 purl, finished with the 2 knit. And when I make this, I do the same with the second front. Then I joined it, the back and the front. You may find how to join these 2 parts with the garter stitch on YouTube, so it's quite easy. You just making these loops to joining these 2 parts, and then I started to make this side parts. It's joined already, but it was a rectangle added to the sides. This is the center, and it was 1 stitch, then 24 and 24, so I had 48 stitches to make this sleeve. I need to adjust the number of this stitches to my sleeve, because then I need to join this stitches of the sleeve and stitches of this sleeve, knitted sleeve. So I counted that I have 48 stitches in the, so I counted that I have 49 stitches in this sleeve on the top part, and I casted on 49 stitches in this knit part. 1 stitch is on this seam. Where is the seam? Here is the seam. So 1 stitch and then 24, so we have 49 stitches. So I casted on these stitches and I worked the garter stitch about 10 centimeters. You need to adjust to your size. And then I decided that I need to add 1 more fig. So I have 5 full figs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full figs, and I tried on, and then I sewed the sleeve and the knit sleeve. On the left side, I show you in a moment how I do this. Just in this way, because we have a chain, nice chain in the knitted part and nice chain on the sleeve part. So look at this. Here is this chain, V chain, and here you have, I prepared a needle for this tapestry needle. Here is the chain, this is the right side, and this is the left side. And here is the seam, so be careful to make the seam bottom, on the bottom part. This is the left side. You see the seams, upper, and I need to start on this, the arm bit here, this, and here is the yarn. It's better to leave long tail when you are crocheting, and when you knit also leave a long tail in the beginning too, because you need to you may use it for making for join this parts of the sweater, so it's better to leave a long tail in the beginning. And I'm preparing it like that. Look at this nice pattern on the wrong side, it's quite nice too. So just making this like that, and you see, zoom in, just making, oh, I'm inserting through under these 2 loops of the chain and under these 2 loops of this chain, and working. I decided to use this kind of seam because it's strong, I think, and it looks quite nice on the right side. If you have any idea how to join these 2 parts, write in comment. And around number of stitches in my sweater is the same through in this part and in this part, so it should be okay. So it's like that, and the right part, it's like, it looks like that. I'll finish it in a moment. Now I tell you something about this ribbing. Finally, I need to count, I need to plan this ribbing to join with the front and the back part. For this final ribbing I used 12 skein, so 1 skein to make this ribbing, and I worked 2 knit and 2 purl, and 2 knit 2 purl, 4 stitches for this ribbing part, 2 knit 2 purl, and then I started through this garter stitch, 2 knit 2 purl 18 times to knit 2 purl until this seam, to knit 2 purl. Then through this neck line I worked through this neckline on this back part. I worked 2 knit 2 purl 6 times and then 2 knit, and I make the same as on this front part, 2 purl and 2 knit 18 times, 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 knit, and on this ribbing 2 purl, 2 knit. It's in a mirror to make it looks like that. I hope my instructions will help you to make your sweater if you want to make a knitted one, but if you want to make a crochet one, follow this pattern by Kandiana. I didn't make a crochet body, crochet front, just crochet beautiful fig patterns by Kandiana. I recommend you to visit my blog and watch the other videos on my channel. In the playlist you'll find amigurumi workshop, sewing project, knitting objects, and if you didn't try this yarn, I recommend you to try. If you tried this yarn, share with me your view on this yarn in the comments, and see you in next videos. Bye!